Our headlines today. Police continue to question a teenage boy about the fatal stabbing of a 15-year-old girl in Croydon.
Good morning. As millions of households face another winter of high energy bills, the regulator Ofgem tells Breakfast it will review standing charges by the end of the year.
A major nature study has found that 1 in 6 wildlife species in the UK is at risk of becoming extinct.
Good morning. Manchester City are reminded what defeat tastes like again as they're knocked out of the League Cup at Newcastle, who now go on themselves to face Manchester United in the 4th round.
Did aliens really visit a primary school in southwest Wales in the 70s? Well, a new documentary aims to find out what really happened. GB News has suspended 2 of its presenters, Dan Wootton and Lawrence Fox, following disparaging comments on air about a female journalist. Wootton has apologised for not intervening whilst Fox made the remarks. An independent health think tank is calling for NHS workers in England to have their student loans written off after 10 years' service. The Nuffield Trust believes it will help retain staff and curb the high number of students who fail to finish their training.
A teenage boy has been arrested after a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death in Croydon in South London on her way to school. Police say the boy, who may have known the victim, was arrested shortly after she died at the scene. She was attacked after getting off a bus. The UK's first consumption room for illegal drugs has been approved by officials in Glasgow. The facility is backed by the Scottish Government as a way to tackle the country's drugs deaths crisis. The pilot scheme will be based at a health centre and users will take their own drugs under the supervision of trained health professionals. Members of Parliament are calling for a much bolder approach to reducing persistent school absence in England. The latest figures show more than a fifth of pupils are missing at least 10% of lessons, about double the pre-pandemic total. Ministers say that they are increasing support for schools, including introducing mentors to work with all their families.
Now let's have a look at the morning's papers for you on Thursday morning. So most of them leading on the fatal stabbing of the 15-year-old girl in Croydon. The miracles at every parent's nightmare, says it's part of a knife crime epidemic.
The Telegraph reports on figures that suggest fewer than half of trainee GPs in the UK go on to work for the NHS full-time, saying the country is increasingly reliant on doctors who trained abroad to fill the vacancies.
Let's have a look at the Times, reporting that Downing Street has backed plans to threaten to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. The paper says the threat would be intended as a warning shot to the court not to block government plans to deport asylum seekers from the UK in Rwanda.
And one of the top stories on the BBC News website today is an assurance from the National Grid that the UK faces a lower risk of electricity blackouts this winter compared to last.
Now let's see what's on the front of the morning's papers, shall we? And the Metro leads with the killing of the teenage girl in Croydon with the headline, "Machete Revenge on Bus to School." And it is the same story in the Daily Mail today, the tragic death of the unnamed 15-year-old. And the Mirror, every parent's worst nightmare, using the words from police on its front page on the murder of a 15-year-old girl in Croydon. And that Croydon killing is also on the front page of The Sun. Meanwhile, The Telegraph leads with a report that only half of trainee GPs go into NHS full-time. An HMRC investigation into one of the Tory party's largest donors is in The Guardian. And The Eye reports on Labour's U-turn on their plan to axe private schools' charity status, while The Times focuses in on Number 10 backing Suella Braverman's threat to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. The Financial Times leads with the City Watchdog probe into private market valuations. And finally, the Daily Star leads on Japanese technology which could help us regrow teeth. And if you want to see any of those front pages again or read the stories, just scan the QR code on your screen.